Welcome to True Echo, where real courage meets unbelievable twists. In today's story, a poor black girl walks into the nation's most elite swimming competition, armed only with a worn-out swimsuit, a mother's love, and a fire that no one saw coming. Mocked, humiliated, and robbed of victory, her silent response changed everything. What she did next silenced the bullies, shocked the nation, and inspired millions. This is not just a race, it's a reckoning. Watch till the end. The air inside the athlete zone of the National Junior Swimming Championship pulsed with tension. The buzz of chatter, the antiseptic smell of chlorine and sweat, and the distant thrum of announcements over the intercom painted a portrait of structured chaos. For Lena Johnson, every step beside her mother felt like stepping deeper into a world that was never meant to include them. 15 years old and fiercely determined, Lena clutched her swim bag tighter, an old, faded one with fraying seams. Her brown eyes darted from the glossy walls to the cushioned benches reserved for top-tier clubs. She had never seen anything like this. Her own neighborhood pool had chipped tiles and murky water. Her swimsuit, once navy, was now a sun-bleached blue with the edges curling from wear. She stood out in every possible way. Her mother walked beside her, a petite woman in a faded work shirt with weary eyes that spoke of years of sacrifice. She gently squeezed Lena's hand as if transferring courage in silence. "Let the water speak for you," she whispered. Lena didn't reply. She just nodded. But before they could even reach the changing room, their path was blocked, metaphorically and emotionally, by the reigning golden girl of junior swimming, Clara Callahan. 16, tall, radiant, with her blonde hair braided back into a crown and a designer tracksuit that practically glittered. Her posse of teammates parted like a sea around her. Clara's eyes narrowed when they landed on Lena. Her smile vanished. She scanned Lena's worn bag and her mother's old shoes, and then shook her head. A small shake, but enough. The message was clear. You don't belong here. Lena didn't flinch, but her mother's hand squeezed tighter. Inside the changing room it got worse. The Blue Shark Club had curtained off sections with plush benches. Lena was left to change in the corner with other unseated swimmers, beside rusted lockers. As she opened hers, she heard a voice, low but clear. "Don't worry. She'll get the best lane. Everything's been arranged." Lena froze. It was an official. Talking to Clara's coach. So it's rigged. That sting in her chest was worse than cold water. Worse than anything she'd felt in all her lonely hours of training. She wasn't just an underdog, she was invisible to them. The system was built for girls like Clara. And Lena was just background. But Lena didn't cry. She didn't lash out. She remembered what her mother once told her. Other kids have coaches. You have your heartbeat. And it never lies. So Lena changed in silence, slipping into her faded suit, tying her hair with an old rubber band, sliding on her father's broken watch. Only the second hand worked. She had timed every lap on that watch, every breath, every stroke. The murky pool in her neighborhood flashed in her mind, her real training ground. The cracked walls, the mossy floor, the broken tiles. No coach, no timer, just her and the water. And her heartbeat. That heartbeat thudded in her ears now as she walked toward the starting block. She wasn't here for second place. She wasn't here to survive. She was here to make a promise, to herself and to her mother. The natatorium buzzed with anticipation. Halogen lights bathed the competition pool in an eerie blue sheen, transforming the water into a shimmering mirror that reflected more than just the athletes. It mirrored dreams, fears, and destinies. Lena stood still on the cold tiled floor, her bare feet gripping the ground as if absorbing strength. Her lane, lane 6, was the worst just as promised. No advantage in placement, no recognition. Only isolation. From lane 5, Clara Callahan stood tall. The favorite. The daughter of Eleanor Callahan, a name that whispered power in sports circles. Clara's metallic suit gleamed like armor. Her expression remained regal, but her eyes twitched with suppressed anxiety. She needed to win. It wasn't about beating Lena. It was about preserving a name, her mother's legacy, her club's reputation, and her own image. The referee raised the starting gun. The pool fell silent. Every spectator, coach, and judge watched the poised young swimmers like statues awaiting a signal from the gods. Then Clara smirked. Lena turned slightly, feeling it before seeing it. That smirk. Clara's eyes locked on hers. "You should be in a pond," Clara hissed. "This pool isn't for trash like you." The words, so casual and cruel, hit Lena like ice shards. For a second, just a second, her chest tightened. Her jaw clenched. But then, something deeper awakened. Her heartbeat. She didn't respond. Her silence was louder than Clara's insult. She didn't need to retaliate with words. She had something better. The whistle blew. Like spring's release, they dove. A perfect arc from Clara. A smooth, controlled dive from Lena. The cold water swallowed them both, but while Clara surged forward with force and fury, Lena melted into the liquid like it was her second skin. Lena had never learned technique from a coach. She had learned from resistance. From murky depths and broken surfaces. Her strokes didn't slice, they flowed. Every movement was like dancing in water. Steady. Fluid. Relentless. Clara thrashed forward, pushing hard, every kick meant to dominate. Her arms rotated with perfect precision, her muscles tight with pressure. But Lena was serene. A storm, yes, but a silent one. Her body glided, responding only to the rhythm she knew so well. Halfway through the race, Clara was ahead. Just barely. The crowd cheered her name. Claire. 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 Lena could hear it all, muffled, distorted, but she never let it in. Instead, she thought of her mother's hands. The calloused fingers that packed her lunches, stitched her suit, and brushed her hair in silence when she came home crying. She thought of their little kitchen, where they celebrated every personal best with dollar store cupcakes. She thought of her heartbeat. The final turn approached. Clara hesitated, just slightly, calculating the distance. She misjudged by inches. Lena didn't. She flipped like a shadow, arms extended, legs coiling. She burst forward from the wall like a torpedo, a surge of raw, practiced power. Her lungs burned. Her arms screamed. But her will roared louder. The final stretch was a blur. Clara felt Lena beside her. Then behind her. Then gone. The wall came faster than expected. Lena's fingers touched it first. Pause. A stillness. Then the scoreboard lit up. Lena Johnson, a new record. Gasps rippled through the stands. A beat of silence. Then thunder. The crowd erupted. Lena broke the surface, breathless, blinking at the numbers. Her heart hammered, not from exhaustion but from disbelief. She had done it. She really had done it. All the pain. The long nights. The lonely swims. It all led here. Her mother stood in the stands, her hands over her mouth, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. She didn't scream. She didn't move. She just stood there in awe, whispering, "My baby did it." But then the murmurs began. A judge speaking into a headset. A meet official pulling another aside. Pointing at lane 6. The crowd's cheers started fading, replaced by confused murmurs. The referee approached the scoreboard. We need to check the timing system in lane 6. It appears there may have been a malfunction. Lena's face froze. Her fingers curled over the edge of the pool. The official wouldn't meet her eyes. He just kept repeating the same line. "We'll review the footage. Please wait. Protocol." But the truth was already written in his face. He was scared. Scared of what Lena's win would mean. Scared of Eleanor Callahan's wrath. 3 days later, the result was officially overturned. The trophy was handed to Clara. Lena's name erased. The news framed it as a technical glitch. Clara posted a photo, trophy in hand, captioned with smug words like legacy, earned, and no excuses. Lena sat in silence that night. Her phone buzzed with 100 notifications and zero justice. Her mother placed a hand on her back, rubbing slowly in silence. Lena didn't cry. She just stared. "I didn't lose," Lena whispered. "They just refused to see me." Her mother's voice cracked. "Then we'll make them look." Lena turned to her. "How?" Her mother didn't know. But in the shadows, someone else was already watching. Someone who had seen everything. Someone with proof. 3 days after the reversal, Lena woke to silence. No news station called her name. No committee issued an apology. On paper, she had never won. But in every beat of her heart, Lena knew she had. And in another corner of the city, someone else knew it too. Alex Miller sat in a dim room, light from his dual monitors reflecting off his glasses. A freelance sports tech analyst and diehard swimming enthusiast, he had attended the championship not as a reporter, but as a hobbyist, with a camera and curiosity. He hadn't planned to record the entire race. But something about the way the referee kept glancing at the VIP section had caught his attention. Something about the sheer arrogance of Clara's smirk at the start, and the unshakable calm in Lena's expression, had told him, keep recording. He had also recorded what happened afterward. The delay. The whispers. The hushed meeting behind the official's desk. And then, by complete chance, he had caught a moment he hadn't meant to, Lena's mother in her best faded dress, standing in the reception lobby of the National Swimming Federation office. She had come alone. No lawyer. No press. Just truth. Alex watched again the way the official had sneered. The way he had gestured to security. The way Lena's mother's voice trembled with quiet strength. She swam with all her heart. That was her dream. Please don't erase her. He had expected to turn off the camera. But he hadn't. And now, staring at hours of footage, the pieces came together. Clara hadn't won. Lena had. He had the times. The synchronized splits. The untouched video stream from a corner lens. And the truth. He paused the video, breath caught in his chest. They robbed her, he whispered. Not metaphorically. Literally. And now he knew what he had to do. Alex spent the next 2 days cross-checking every frame. He lined up the touchpad timestamps with the backup overhead camera. He ran comparative footage. The result was undeniable. Lena touched first. Clean. Undisputed. Clara came in more than half a second later. Alex opened a blank video project, dragged in the footage and laid down a title. The Girl Who Was Robbed, Will Justice Speak? He didn't add dramatic music. He didn't add a voiceover. He didn't have to. The footage spoke louder than any narration. In the final frame, he faded in a single quote from Lena's mother, "Let the water speak for you." Then he hit upload. At first it was quiet. A few shares among swim forums. A couple hundred views. Then thousands. Within 24 hours the video exploded. Across Reddit, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok the story caught fire. People weren't just angry, they were incensed. A new hashtag surged, #Justice for Lena. Verified athletes began reposting it. Olympians, coaches, celebrities. Then came the calls for inquiry. Commentators demanded answers. Pressure mounted. Within 48 hours, sponsors began to pull back from Clara Callahan. On day 3, a group of retired athletes issued a public statement condemning the federation's decision. And on day 5, the unexpected happened. A coalition of ex-Olympians, activists, and independent sports organizations announced a new event. Swim for Justice, a true race. Open lanes. Neutral officiating. No political sponsors. Just water and truth. And Lena was the first to be invited. Her mother read the letter aloud in their kitchen, her hands trembling. Lena didn't speak for a long moment. Then finally, this time no one can take it away. Clara Callahan received the same invitation, but under very different circumstances. The Callahan family's publicist urged her to attend, to clear her name. Her coach demanded she swim to defend your honor. But it wasn't about honor anymore. It was survival. Eleanor Callahan said nothing for an entire evening. Then, during dinner, she looked at her daughter with ice-cold precision. A Callahan does not run from a fight. Clara nodded, but something in her gaze had changed. It was no longer just fear of losing a race. It was fear of losing herself. She would swim. But for the first time she didn't believe she could win. The Swim for Justice meet didn't take place in a gleaming stadium. It was held at a community aquatic center, clean but modest. No banners. No corporate logos. Just swimmers, volunteers, and a packed crowd of believers. Lena entered quietly, her old bag still slung over her shoulder, her mother holding her hand. People clapped when she walked in. Cheered. Some even cried. She didn't wave. She didn't pose. She just nodded with quiet grace. Across the pool, Clara sat in the corner. No teammates. No velvet lounge chairs. Just a cracked bench and her reflection in a dusty mirror. She put on her suit in silence. But her hands trembled. For the first time she wondered what would happen if she simply lost. The moment the referee blew the whistle for warm-ups, the room hushed. This wasn't just another meet. It was a reckoning. Swimmers from all over the region had come to participate, but everyone knew there were only 2 names on the audience's minds. Lena Johnson and Clara Callahan. This time, Lena wasn't assigned the worst lane. She was in lane 4, dead center. Clara was in lane 5. No technical glitches. No officials whispering in dark corners. No backroom arrangements. Just water. Lena stood at the edge of the pool, closing her eyes for a moment. Her breath deepened, steady. Her fingers moved slightly, her ritual like tuning an instrument. Behind her eyelids, she wasn't thinking about revenge or Clara or even the race. She was thinking about her mother's hands sewing patches onto her old swimsuit. About how that cracked pool back home had always welcomed her. About how every drop of sweat she ever shed in secret was now part of the strength she carried. Across from her, Clara struggled to control her breathing. She adjusted her goggles for the 3rd time, even though they were already tight. Her reflection in the surface of the pool shimmered back at her, and for the first time she didn't recognize the girl staring back. Where there used to be confidence, there was panic. Where there was once pride, now only dread. What if I lose again? In front of everyone? What if this time, no one can cover it up? She looked across at Lena, who stood motionless like a statue. Strong. Composed. And for the first time in Clara's life she knew, truly knew, that she wasn't the strongest one here. The crowd was quiet as the swimmers stepped onto the starting blocks. Thousands watched online. Tens of thousands. In the stands, Lena's mother folded her hands tightly in her lap. Alex Miller stood near the judge's booth, camera slung over his shoulder, eyes locked on lane 4. The referee raised the whistle. Silence fell. Then, take your marks. Pause. Beep. They launched. Both girls dove with power. The splash rang like a thunderclap. Clara's dive was sharp, aggressive. Perfect form. Years of training. Lena's dive was different. Not as aggressive, but smooth, controlled, natural. They entered the water at nearly the same time. The first 25 meters was neck and neck. Clara was faster off the blocks. But Lena's kick was cleaner, more efficient. Clara gritted her teeth underwater. Push, push. Don't let her catch you. Lena didn't think about the race. She simply swam. Stroke after stroke, breath after breath. The rhythm wasn't something she forced. It came to her like a memory, deep, ancestral, rooted in the water. The second length came and went. Still neck and neck. Then something shifted. Clara's rhythm began to falter. It was almost imperceptible. A single breath taken half a second too late. A stroke that didn't fully extend. A turn just slightly off. Because Clara was swimming to prove something. Lena was swimming for something bigger. The third length was where it broke. Lena surged ahead. Her body stretched like a ribbon of power through the water. Her legs moved with purpose. Her arms cut through the resistance like blades. Clara felt the pull of the current beside her, and couldn't match it. By the final 25 meters, the crowd had risen to its feet. The chants began low and grew fast. Lena, Lena, Lena. Clara's mind blurred. Her mother's voice rang in her ears, a Callahan never loses. But the water didn't care about names. It only cared about truth. Lena touched the wall. The buzzer echoed. For a full 2 seconds, Clara's hand hadn't yet arrived. When it did, the only sound left was roaring applause. Lena lifted her goggles and looked up. New personal best. New meet record. She gasped. She smiled. Then she cried. Tears burst from her eyes, not from exhaustion but release. The pain, the humiliation, the erasure. All of it washed away by the truth of this moment. Clara remained floating in her lane, staring at the scoreboard. Her chest rose and fell. Her face blank. The camera cut to Lena's mother in the stands. She had both hands over her mouth again. But this time her shoulders shook with silent joy. She didn't clap. She just cried and nodded. My baby did it. Again. And this time no one could take it away. The announcer's voice rang out. Ladies and gentlemen, your winner, Lena Johnson. The entire building stood. Alex Miller captured every second, live streaming to over 2 million people. The comments section exploded with fire emojis, crying emojis, and justice slogans. And Lena? She climbed out of the pool. Not with swagger, but with grace. She walked over to her mother, dripping wet, and wrapped her in a hug so tight, it looked like she never planned to let go. They stood there, holding each other, as the crowd around them continued to erupt in applause. As the thunderous applause echoed through the Swim for Justice arena, the crowd surged forward with phones raised, capturing the moment history had been rewritten. Not by money, not by legacy, but by sheer, undeniable heart. Lena stood beside her mother, still dripping wet, her chest heaving with emotion. The air around them crackled with energy, cheers, laughter, and tears blending into a storm of vindication. Journalists swarmed, volunteers tried to hold the crowd back, but none of that mattered to Lena. Her mother cupped her face with both hands. You did it, she whispered through trembling lips. Not once, twice. And this time, the world saw it. Lena smiled through her tears. I swam for you, Mama. For everything you gave up. But across the pool, behind the swarm and spotlights, stood Clara Callahan. Alone. She hadn't stepped out of the water yet. Instead, she floated still, her fingers gripping the edge of the lane like it was the only thing holding her together. No one cheered for her. No officials approached. Her coach was nowhere in sight. She had lost. And for the first time, no one was going to fix it. Eventually, Clara pulled herself out of the pool, water sliding off her arms like regrets. Her towel lay on a nearby bench, forgotten. Her designer robe remained untouched. She didn't reach for them. Instead, Clara sat down on the cold tile floor, back against the wall, hair dripping, mascara smudged. She looked at Lena across the way. And for the first time, Clara didn't see a rival or a threat. She saw someone stronger than she'd ever been. The audience didn't notice Clara slipping out the back. No cameras followed. No reporters chased. It was as if the crowd itself had moved on, finally giving Lena the space she had always deserved. That night, the internet erupted. Clips of Lena's race flooded every major platform. Edits of her final stretch went viral. One slow-motion replay of her touching the wall to the erupting crowd reached 10 million views in 6 hours. Major athletes reposted it with captions like, "Talent is one thing. Grit is another. This girl has both. The real champion. Respect. Heart never lies." The Swim for Justice organizers released a statement that evening, officially recognizing Lena Johnson as the event's record-breaking winner. They also announced a full scholarship fund in her name, the Lena Johnson Swim for Truth Grant, to support underprivileged youth in competitive swimming. But it wasn't just the internet or the swimming world that took notice. The mainstream media couldn't ignore it anymore. CNN, ESPN, ABC. Even conservative outlets picked up the story. Underdog triumphs over corruption, one headline read. Teen girl silenced by elite club fights back and wins. Talk shows invited Lena and her mother to speak. Schools wrote letters. A sportswear company reached out offering Lena her first sponsorship deal, not because of influence but because of integrity. Lena turned most of it down. She only said yes to one thing, a town hall visit to her old middle school, where she spoke in the same dusty gym she'd once sat in during silent assemblies. The kids there didn't remember her as a champion. They remembered her as the quiet girl who used to read by herself at lunch. Now she stood in front of them, tall and confident. "I wasn't supposed to win," she said, her voice echoing across the gymnasium. "They told me I didn't belong. That someone like me, someone who trains in a cracked pool with a broken watch, would never matter." She paused, glancing at the worn basketball court beneath her feet. "But I didn't swim for them. I swam for me. For my mom. For every kid here who's ever been told they're not enough. Let them say it. Let them laugh. Then let your work speak louder than their words." The gym erupted in cheers. Meanwhile, across town, the Callahan mansion had grown quiet. Eleanor Callahan watched the viral videos with her jaw locked, eyes narrowing with every headline. Her empire, her spotless reputation, had cracked, and the world was watching it shatter in slow motion. Clara sat on the edge of her canopy bed, hands clenched on her lap, replaying Lena's final strokes over and over on her phone. She didn't speak. She hadn't for hours. "I trained you for years," Eleanor hissed, turning to her daughter. "You were supposed to dominate. You were supposed to show the world our name still meant something." Clara's voice came out barely above a whisper. "She earned it, Mom." Eleanor turned, stunned. "What?" Clara finally looked up, her eyes no longer sharp or afraid, but tired. "Lena. She earned it. And I didn't." Silence swallowed the room. "I'm not like you," Clara added, voice breaking. "I don't want to fight dirty. I don't want to cheat to win. That wasn't victory, it was shame." Eleanor scoffed, folding her arms. "You sound weak." "No," Clara said slowly. "For the first time I don't." And with that, Clara stood and walked out. She didn't slam the door. She didn't cry. She just left. Maybe not from the house, but from the weight her mother had chained to her shoulders since she was a child. The next day, Lena visited her old pool, the murky, cracked one in the abandoned complex. Her mother came too, sitting on a broken bench with her thermos of coffee. Lena dove into the water without ceremony. She swam slowly, each lap a silent meditation. It wasn't for practice. It wasn't for cameras. It was home. As she reached the far wall and turned, she noticed a car parked across the street. A figure standing silently beside it. Claire. Lena paused at the edge of the pool, brushing water from her eyes. Clara didn't move. Didn't wave. She just watched. And then, quietly, she placed something on the wall just outside the chain-link fence. It was her gold trophy, wrapped in a towel. And then Clara turned and walked away. Lena looked down at the object, then back at the empty street. And in that moment she understood. No words were needed. The water had already spoken for both of them. Lena stood by the edge of the pool, droplets rolling off her arms, as she stared at the towel-wrapped trophy Clara had left behind. She didn't move to pick it up. Not yet. The symbol of stolen victory, now quietly returned, not in front of cameras, not with apologies, just a silent gesture, sat there like a buried truth finally unearthed. It wasn't redemption, but it was real. Her mother walked over and followed Lena's gaze. When she saw the trophy, her lips parted slightly, but she said nothing. "I think she's trying," Lena murmured. Her mother placed a hand on her shoulder. "She's late. But maybe it still means something." Lena finally walked over, crouched, and gently unwrapped the towel. The golden surface still shimmered, though it looked less like a prize now and more like a memory of injustice. It didn't fill her with pride. It didn't make her smile. She didn't want it for glory. She wanted it because it had once been taken from her, and now, even if it was late, she had claimed it back on her terms. "I'm not going to keep it," she said softly. Her mother looked surprised. "You earned it." Lena nodded. "Exactly. And I don't need a trophy to prove it." She rewrapped the award, stood, and walked to the nearby community rec center. Inside, there was a modest trophy cabinet filled with local team medals and faded ribbons. Lena asked the front desk if she could leave something. The woman behind the desk blinked when she saw what Lena was holding. You're Lena Johnson, right?" Lena smiled. "I am." Within minutes, staff gathered. They cleared a special space in the case, made a handmade placard, and placed the trophy inside. It would stay there, not as a testament to victory, but as a reminder that justice always finds water level. Over the next few weeks, Lena's story continued to ripple across the country. A documentary team asked to follow her journey, and for the first time she said yes, not for fame but because she wanted her story to belong to others like her. Kids who swam in rusted pools. Girls with no coaches. Mothers who worked 2 jobs but still found time to believe. Clips from the Swim for Justice meet began appearing in school programs and training videos. Coaches praised her form. Olympians referenced her perseverance. And perhaps most significantly, Lena began volunteering every weekend at that same cracked neighborhood pool, now lovingly cleaned and repainted thanks to donations from supporters online. She taught kids how to float, how to breathe, how to listen to the water, and to themselves. In one session, a shy little girl clung to the pool ladder, crying that she'd never be fast enough, that she'd never win anything. Lena crouched beside her and whispered, "You don't have to win. You just have to believe the water wants you here." The girl blinked, sniffled, and finally let go, floating on her back, arms open, a smile breaking across her face. Meanwhile, Clara Callahan was experiencing a different kind of transformation. She had stepped away from competition. The pressure from her mother, the stares from old teammates, the headlines, all of it had collapsed into a crushing silence that echoed in every empty room of their mansion. But instead of retreating, Clara started over. She enrolled in a local university under her middle name. No private tutors. No luxury dorm. Just herself. She took a class in sports ethics. Another in psychology. She started writing, journaling every night. She revisited footage of Lena's race not with envy, but with curiosity. She realized she had never loved swimming. She loved winning, because it made her mother proud. But for Lena, the water was freedom. And maybe, Clara wanted that too. One night, while volunteering at a youth sports workshop, Clara stood beside a coach explaining the difference between competition and character. A little boy asked her, "Were you ever in a race where you lost?" Clara looked at him and said the bravest thing she'd ever said, "Yes. And I deserve to." The coach clapped her gently on the back. Later that evening, Clara pulled out her phone and typed a message to Lena. "I've watched your race more times than I can count. Not to study it, but to remember what strength really looks like. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm trying. Thank you for showing me who I could have been if I'd listened to my own heart instead of someone else's voice." She hit send. No reply came. But she didn't need one. She had already heard the message Lena gave the world, not in words but in water. Elsewhere, Alex Miller received an unexpected award from a civil integrity coalition for his whistleblowing work. At the podium, he held up his camera and said, "I didn't expose anything. Lena did. I just hit record. The truth was always there. You just had to listen." He ended his speech with Lena's mother's quote, "Let the water speak for you." And it had. Loud enough for the whole world to hear. 6 months later, Lena stood at the edge of a gleaming Olympic-sized pool in Atlanta. This time not as an underdog, not as a ghost in Lane 6, but as a featured athlete for the National Youth Invitational. Her name was on the banner. Her face was on the pamphlet. But more than any of that, she was free. The air buzzed with excitement. Kids lined the stands wearing shirts that read "Swim like Lena," holding handmade signs with hearts and water droplets. Cameras flashed, not because of scandal but because of respect. She wasn't just a swimmer anymore. She had become a symbol. Lena adjusted her goggles, exhaled slowly, and walked to the blocks. She was no longer swimming to prove herself. This wasn't about revenge or justice. This was a celebration. And as she stood poised, staring down at the calm blue surface, her heart remained steady, not pounding with pressure but pulsing with peace. The whistle blew. She dove. Below the surface, the world disappeared. It was quiet, like it had always been. Just Lena and the water, dancing. She swam with grace, no need to chase anyone, no need to silence doubters. She had already done all that. When she touched the wall, the roar of the crowd came rushing back like a wave, and with it joy. Not relief. Not vindication. Just pure earned joy. She climbed from the pool, her mother waiting on the sidelines, now dressed in a simple new blouse donated by one of Lena's sponsors. The years of fatigue etched into her face had softened. She still worked hard, still lived simply, but now she stood proud. Without apology. Without fear. Lena reached her and wrapped her in a hug. A reporter asked from behind the cameras, "Lena, what would you say to the girl you were 1 year ago, walking into that first meet with nothing but an old bag and a dream?" Lena turned, smiled, and replied, "I'd say don't be afraid of silence. Sometimes, it's where your loudest strength grows. Let them doubt you. Just listen to your heartbeat. It doesn't lie." Applause followed. But Lena was already walking away hand in hand with her mother. She didn't need to stay for interviews. Her story had already been written, in laps, in strokes, in quiet victories. And far away, watching from the back row in a simple hoodie and cap, Clara Callahan stood quietly. She didn't ask to meet Lena. She didn't pose for pictures. She just smiled. It was genuine. A tear slipped down her cheek, not out of regret but gratitude. Because even in losing, she had finally found herself. And so, Lena Johnson's story wasn't just about swimming. It was about resilience in the face of injustice. About a mother's quiet faith. About letting your heartbeat drown out the noise of doubt. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't shout, it's to let your actions speak. Let the water speak for you. If this story moved you, hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to True Echo for more powerful stories like this. Leave a comment below. What part of Lena's journey inspired you the most?